So it's one of those stories that I think we all think that we know about his career, about the accident, about his life subsequently as a campaigner and an activist. But I wondered if there was anything that you found out when you were researching about him as a person, about his professional life, that was a real eye-opener for you.
I mean, everything, because in fact, when we started, we knew what you were just saying. So we knew that he was Superman. We knew that he was, he had had a terrible riding accident. And we knew that subsequently he'd become an advocate and campaigner. And so it was very much in our heads, right from the beginning, we were thinking superhero on screen, hero off screen, in a sense. But as we got into the research and making the film, we discovered there was so much more. There were 2 love stories, one with Gay Exton, one with Dana Reeve, which is obviously very much at the heart of the film. And we discovered that there were these 3 amazing children from those 2 partnerships, Matthew, Alexandra and Will. And as we went on making the film, they became very much our stars, in a sense, our on-camera stars. And we just discovered that, behind the hero was this whole family and support network of friends, and there was a great deal of love for him and an extraordinary legacy, and that's what the film became about.
So where did the inspiration come from initially to make the film? Was it something that just came your way, or was it something that was maybe in the back of your minds?
It came our way. So there was an archive producer called Daniel Kilroy who actually reached out to the family, and it was the right moment for them for many reasons. But when they actually, the production company Passion Pictures got in touch, it was a no-brainer for us straight away. For many of the reasons that Peter said, there was so many layers of humanity, as well as, the great Superman. He's the greatest Superman that has ever been, and he still remains in people's mind. It's one of those things which is a very big challenge for any actors taking it on afterwards. He cemented himself in that role beyond anyone's expectation, I think, at the time, and even now, he's suffering the test of time. But we had come across him during our previous film about the Paralympic movement, Rising Phoenix, and we had seen him doing a speech at the Atlanta 1996, and it was always a little bit in the back of our heads that it would have been, that's quite interesting, he's fascinating. But again, we get approached about quite a few stories, but it has to be a story which has got all of that emotionally charging elements that Chris's life is. I look this way because he's looking at me. There's the picture.
Keeping an eye on you.
Yeah, he's keeping an eye on us. So
he's always keeping an eye on us.
Yeah. But I think it's visually as well. And we said first when we got approached, how often could you get the opportunity to direct Superman, to make a Superman film? And actually the original Superman, we can't redo the 4. Mm-hmm. We probably won't be asked to do the next ones. But this one was a great opportunity, and play with that archive footage and play with that all this imagery from the past and relearn about how things were made. I mean, you ask a question afterwards, what did we discover before? What did we discover? How much he directed and how much he acted post-accident. That was phenomenal for me. Yes. Being a quadriplegic on a van, the fact that he directed 2 movies, wrote 2 books, and acted in countless films within 9 years, let alone to be one of the main activists. That was phenomenal, the fact that he managed to go back to work and actually, create a movement and a representation for people with disability on screen, which was never seen before.
You mentioned the family earlier, and you said it was the right time for them, for the film to be made. Obviously, they must be quite protective about his legacy. I wondered how much freedom you had to make the film that you wanted to make, and how you managed to strike a balance between the 2 with the family.
Well, I mean, we had countless Zoom calls. We met Will in person in London. We ultimately all met up in New York. That was the first time that we all met, the 5 of us, in person, the 3 kids and the 2 of us. And I think from the start, the way that we talked about how we wanted to make the film appealed to them, and also the fact that we were saying we didn't want to put him on a pedestal. You know, we wanted to show him with his flaws and his weaknesses, because that makes the heroism all the more resonant and in a way universal. So that was sort of like key to us, and also was right in line with what they wanted to do, the kind of film they wanted to make. Once we had established that trust, which also came about because they saw our previous two films, once we'd established that, they gave us the archive. They agreed to sit for interviews. I don't think they were expecting each interview to be a day long, but that's another story. And they were just absolutely, they just left us to it. They didn't see the film a cut of the film till about 2-3 weeks before we sent it to Sundance. And at that point, they were thrilled with it. They had to give us feedback, obviously, but they really let us make the film that we wanted to make.
You mentioned the archive there, and there is so much archive material. I mean, the one that sticks in my head is the letter from Katharine Hepburn with "What a mess."
Golly, what a mess.
Golly, what a mess, which is such a Katharine Hepburn thing to say, really. But there's home movies, there's photographs, there's so much material in there. Was there anything that you really wanted to use and couldn't, for whatever reason?
I think we left things out, not because we couldn't use them, but despite they must have been amazing, just because they were not quite right for the emotional journey we were trying to do in the film. There's loads of magical moments, but at the same time, we're very respectful of screen time. We're very respectful of the audiences, and we try to be really hard with ourselves not to fall in love. There's loads of Peter and I, we discovered about his activism and something he did in Chile.
Before the accident.
Before the accident. And the footage we had, he flew to Chile to help a group of actors that were actually trying to fight Pinochet and the regime. And all the footage we discovered was quite amazing there. But that bit ended up not being in the film. Despite that amazing archive was found out. But I think things we really wanted to use is the most intimate stuff. We really, for people to really get a sense of the people, you need that home movie archive. You need those little smiley moments. You need, Matthew to tell Will when he was just born, action, to hear those voices about holding the camera. That's really magical.
Yeah. At the end of the film, we hear Christopher talking about his views on what makes a hero and how his definition has changed. And actually, I thought both definitions were equally valid, but in completely different ways. I wondered what your definition is of a hero.
The second one for me, yeah.
It doesn't have to be the same as his. I mean, it can be
No, because
your
I think it's one thing, we start the film, it's a journey about heroism, really. It starts the film with Christopher saying America needs heroes, and he seems to be absolutely cut out to be the all-American hero. But that's something that is beautiful on screen, and we all love to fantasize about and escape into. But actually, the journey that he goes on, it brings heroism down to an everyday level. How do you cope with the circumstances that he found himself in? How do you play the hand that you're dealt, as he puts it? And I think that is really something that anyone can identify with, because all of us have to face bereavement, or we have to face breakup, or we have to face disease or disability in our lives. Everyone's going to have to do that. And I think that the way Chris responded, and his family, and his friends to that particular, to the hand that he was dealt, that's heroism, and that's something we hope that all audiences everywhere can identify with.
It's a wonderful tribute to his legacy, and indeed to Dana's legacy as well. And dare I say it, it's also a 5-tissue movie. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.